Hello everyone, Tally and Farrell here from Bored of It.
And thanks for joining us for our monthly look back video this month for May. And we've started doing these because we mainly review board games, but we can only get so many videos out a month. And part of the fun of having a channel is getting to engage with the community and talk to people and share ideas and opinions. So we started doing this because we play a lot more games than the games we review. And so this gives us a chance to discuss those games, tell you what we think, tell you what we like, who they might be for, and hopefully you can pick up some cool new ideas, but also tell us what you think about these games and just generally engage with each other. So we format this in the way of giving each game a prestigious award.
Thank you.
I'm being told off for not saying they're prestigious before.
Because they're highly prestigious.
And which will summarise our thoughts on the game very succinctly, and then we'll get into it. So, without further ado, we will move on to our first game. The first award is the Weirdly Strategic Award, which goes to Taco Cat Spelled Backwards, a game by the Exploding Kittens people, and they kindly sent us this to review, so we'll probably have a short little review coming out in the future. But why don't you explain how it works and what it's about?
Sure. It's a two-player tug-of-war game. Actually has nothing to do with palindromes, which I really thought it did. It's actually a numbers-based game. It's very cool because the board is actually inside the box, so great for travel. And we have little Taco Cat, super cute, love it. He starts off in the middle, and then the players get dealt a varying amount of cards each round, each that has a value on it from 1 to 12. And each of those cards has a nice little palindrome and illustration on it. So each player gets their cards, and basically the goal each round is to be the player that ends up with the lowest value card. So how the round will start is each player takes a card to give out for initiative. And this is strategic because you could give the highest value to be the player that goes first, but sometimes you might want to give a lower card because you want to keep your higher ones, because what will happen throughout the round is that you'll attack each other with the card values. So the active player will place card or cards down, and the opposing player basically has to match it with equal or higher value. But if you can't match it, you are forced to get rid of your lowest value card. So that's where the jeopardy is, because you have to be ending up with the lowest value card. And each winner, each round, Taco Cat will jump towards or further away from you until Taco Cat ends up at one of them.
Yeah. And there's a few little wrinkles as well. So you could play, if you have 3 8s, you could play them all at once, and then your opponent will have to defend against 3 8s at once. So maybe they want to put an 8, a 9 and a 10, or an 8 and 8, but if they can't do it, then they lose as many cards as they didn't defend. So they could lose 2 of their lowest cards, for example, if they couldn't defend. And you can even do this in numerical order. So if you get a group of 3 or more, so 9, 10, 11, you can play them at once, and they have to defend against each one as a set, if you will. But yeah. So,
why is it weirdly strategic?
Yeah,
why does it win that?
What I was just going to say. It's weirdly strategic because it's a weird game in general. You would think a game from the Exploding Kittens people would be a party game, like really silly, simple, maybe not much strategy. And this is for 2 players. It's not that silly. It's head to head. And it's kind of a card game you could play even with a normal set of cards.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's just weirdly strategic because you expect a silly game, and what you get is a game where you're thinking about, what card should I play for initiative? Should I play my 12 because I know I'll win? Or should I just get rid of the 6 and keep my big cards? But then I have to defend first. And if they play 4 at once, then, it's this weird little mind game simulator thing where you're playing these cards back and forth. Should I use my 3 8s at once, or should I use 8, 9, 10, or should I just use an 8? And it's just
And you have the option to get rid of some cards at the beginning when you first get your hand.
Yeah.
So that's also another little strategic point. Should I keep the hand that I have? Should I get rid of 1, 2 cards? Because also, if you're the active player, however many you decide to get rid of, your opponent can also get rid of. So there's consideration around, okay, if I get rid of 2, but so can they, and improve their hand. So there's just lots of little things to think about, given that it's a very small box, 2-player, head-to-head game.
But also, you learned a new word from that, didn't you?
What was that?
Mulligan.
Mulligan, yeah. I thought you were just saying it to
making
be
it up.
Funny or making it up. And I was like, because a lot of your vocabulary is references from very niche TV shows sometimes.
Vocabulary.
Yeah, and sometimes that seeps its way into your personality.
Sure.
So I thought that was the case there, but apparently not. And yes, I did learn a new word.
You got to learn what a mulligan is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will share our thoughts on this in more detail. We've been enjoying it, but yeah, it's just in this weird space where I'm not quite sure who exactly it's for. Maybe more of a younger crowd in terms of like kids, it might be good for them.
Yeah.
Just because it's an Exploding Kittens style game, but it's a strategy game, but it's also like a simple card game. It's a weird one.
Yeah. But I think it's one that we would take on holiday or to the pub, just because of the way that it's set up in the box. I can see us doing that, taking it to the pub.
Yeah. And just to loop back round to the palindrome thing, the art direction is really great. The production is incredible. Like, you've got this box, the cards, the artwork's awesome. It's very humorous. I actually prefer it to Exploding Kittens artwork. But it's just very weird that it's not a word game because of all the focus on it being palindromic. Yeah, so it was a bit of a surprise to us when it just became a normal card game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will have a little review of this in more detail. Now I need to know which is the top and which is the bottom.
Oh, not Taco Cat.
So you can... this is embarrassing. Can't even close it. So you can find more of our thoughts there coming in the future. But yeah. On to the next award.
And the next highly prestigious award is the Fallie Stresstacular Funtime Award, which goes to Undaunted Normandy.
Could be the most prestigious award.
I think so.
Stresstacular Funtime Award, that's a big award. Yep, so Undaunted Normandy is a head-to-head, again, 2-player, card-driven deck builder, World War II simulator type game. And it was very surprising to us because we really didn't think we would like it. Not that we didn't think we would like it, but we were taken aback by how engaging it is and addictive and how much we want to play and how fun and stressful it is, which is why it gets this award. But what you do is you simulate battles in Normandy, US versus Germany, World War II battles, and your soldiers that you command are represented by a deck of cards. And these cards are all individual soldiers given names, and they all have different occupations. So you can have snipers, riflemen, scouts, and they all do slightly different things. And on top of the slightly different things, each card has a multitude of actions you could take. So with a scout, for example, you could move and explore territory, which would then allow your riflemen to move onto that territory. Or you could get rid of these fog of war cards, which are just things that clog up your deck, and so on and so forth. So it's really quite interesting. And each scenario, you play it through scenarios, there's 12. And they're slightly asymmetric in that the US deck and the German deck will start differently. You might have different objectives. And you just get this thing of where a lot of the combat is through rolling dice. So different soldiers will have different roles. A rifleman, simple. I think, what do they hit on? Rifleman?
They have
Basic?
a defensive 4.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. No. So, yeah, the way combat works is it's actually quite ingenious. So you basically look at who you want to target. So it's a scout. Scouts have a defense of 6. And you have a 10-sided dice. So you have to roll a 6 or above. But then for each square of the map they're away, that's an extra point you need to get. And the tiles themselves, where they are on the land, say if they're in a hedgerow or on a hill or something like that in a building, they'll have even higher defense because the tiles can have defense. So it's really this cool thing of like, depending how close you are and how well defended the players are and where you've put these people into position, it can be harder or easier, and you can be tactical about it. And then snipers will roll more dice, so it's easier to hit. Machine gunners can suppress, which is very easy to kind of pin someone down, but that does something different than killing them. And when you kill someone, they are out of your opponent's deck for good. So you lose it from your hand first, and I think your discard pile, then your deck. But that person is gone, and then they have one less rifleman for the rest of the game. And as the game goes on, you get less and less and less, and it gets harder and harder and more tense. And yeah, it's a hell of an experience.
Yeah, I'm massively surprised by how much I like this. I didn't know anything about it when it arrived because you were making all the purchases. And I saw the box. I'm not typically into combat games, which I say all the time. I didn't really know what to expect and thought I probably wouldn't like it. But yeah, absolutely love it. It's really genius how it creates this almost real lifelike battle scenario where it's so tense, and because of the asymmetry, you start in different places in the map. So Germany might start on one side and then US starts on another side, and you really have to consider, as if you were an army general, should I rush in to the middle because I need to get to the middle? Should I stay back and try and hit some of my opponents and get them out and weaken them first? And very strategic with just a deck of cards.
Yeah, exactly.
And some tokens on a board.
It's one of our favourite type of games. Or not favourite type of games necessarily, but a genre that I personally love, and a kind of tagline is where they do a lot with a little. They use very simple ideas and mechanisms to create a depth of gameplay.
Yeah.
And last time we talked about Hansa Teutonica, or maybe two of these videos ago, that is a game that, with some cubes and a map, you get this incredible depth of gameplay.
Yeah.
King is Dead, which we're going to talk about, does the same thing. And I think it's just always really cool when a designer manages to do that, and designers in this case.
Yeah.
Why don't you say about how the scenarios play out as well? Because you always look at them, right?
Yeah.
And you think it's going to be really easy or unfair for one side.
Yeah, it is really crazy. Sometimes we set up a scenario because it has a stack of tiles in there which create the map, and it's different every time dependent on the scenario. And we set it up and we think, hang on, that's going to be super easy for the German team to do the objective. So it could be something like control 3 of the tiles which have objective points. It always looks like it would be so easy for someone. But when the gameplay starts, it goes on for so much longer than we anticipate, because there's just so much strategy going on, and it is a really tense, tight battle every time we've played it.
Yeah, it's just one of those games where you just almost are always in it. It can always flip, even if it feels like the darkest hour.
Yeah.
It can always flip, and you can always pull back almost. But
it's true. And also, I think I don't mind stressful. Yeah, it is really stressful. Don't mind the combat with the dice rolling so much. I mean, it can be frustrating, obviously, if you keep not hitting. But I think there's things that you can do to help your position. So you could choose the strategy of getting closer to them, because then you are lessening their defense, so you have more chance, but then you're putting yourself out in the open. So sometimes you might have to hit only a 10 on the dice if you're really far away, which is obviously quite hard to do, but you could better your chances by moving over here closer to them, or doing something else. So there's things you can do to control it. There's just not control it, but help your chances. Yeah, but there's just risk associated with it. So it doesn't ever feel unfair or too frustrating to have combat with dice rolling. No, it doesn't feel frustrating, but it does feel frustrating. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, you're right. I think just to end, because we'll probably also do a review of this at some point, one thing this game is great for is decision-making and choice. Every choice you make is so difficult and interesting, and that is what makes great games, because you don't want a game where you have no real choice and you're like, it's obvious I'm going to do this. You don't want to do that. Here it begins start of each round, because
you get these cards, and so all the soldiers have values on them, and you can use them to bid for initiative at the start of each round, which is who takes their entire turn first. And you get these tough choices of, oh, I really need this guy, but I can't afford to go second, so should I sacrifice him? And it starts there, and then it just goes on till, okay, now I'm going first, and I've got these 3 guys. What order should I use them in, or what action? I really could use this machine gunner to suppress someone, to stop Tally from moving. But if I move him forward next turn, I'm going to be in a much better position to take out one of her troops. Yeah. And it's this kind of thing, and everything you do is interesting.
Yeah, so true. Great game.
Stressful game. Honestly, I think it's the most stressful game we play. We're both like swaying and tired at the end of it.
I'm exhausted after a game of this because the brainium is always thinking.
But yeah, so that was Undaunted Normandy, the Fallie Stresstacular Fun Zone Award.
Funtime.
And on to the next game.
And the next award is the Board of It Best Game of 2020 award. Ooh.
Prestigious.
Which goes to Forgotten Waters. I think we already mentioned this in our review of it that we did last year, but this is personally for us one of our best games that came out of 2020. So Forgotten Waters is a narrative-driven game where you have an app, and there's a storyboard or a storybook in the middle, and you play as pirates on a ship completing a mission that is driven by the app. You have your own personal pirate characters and pirate stories, which is always very fun to read their backstory. And what will happen each round is you take your character, and there'll be a number of options available on the page of the storybook that are actions, basically. And you take it in turns in order of pirate infamy, which can change throughout the game depending on what you do. And you choose an action and you go in order, and then once the time is out, you complete those actions. The genius part of Forgotten Waters is you're working co-op on the scenario to try and complete it, but you do also have your own personal pirate objectives. So it keeps things really interesting because you could choose an action that will help the group and that you need to do to improve your ship or fight some enemies off. But you could also choose an action that's going to help you further your own personal goals, because actually at the end of the game, you all have to complete the scenario to win. But if you don't complete your personal pirate goals, you actually lose. So it's important to balance both. I think it keeps it really interesting, prevents quarterbacking in a co-op game as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we love it. We always have so much fun. It's the game that makes us lol the most. And didn't know that board games could make you laugh so much.
No, that's true. And when we were giving it this Our Favourite Game of 2020 award, it is literally that we mean this in terms of fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so much fun. Every time we play it, it's full of laughter. And we played it, so we bring it up for this look back because we played it on a bank holiday over the last month. And again, we completed a scenario that we'd failed before. Mm-hmm. Just good fun. And to flesh out some of the things you said, what's cool is that you take the role of a pirate and it's like RPG mechanics. So you have a pirate sheet and you have skills, and when you take these actions that Tally was saying about, you usually tick off something and then you improve in that, and you also roll dice and you add up all your cards and what you've improved and so on. And these pirate sheets, there's about 20 different unique ones, I think, all with a hilarious backstory. Mm-hmm. And it does a bit of Mad Libs where you fill in different words, what's your favourite fruit, place to go on holiday, and then it fits them into your personal story that you'll read out at occasions while you play. And another really fun, engaging thing is that when you take these actions on this book, you never get to know exactly what you're doing. You just get a place name. So it'll say, go to the Sloppy Squirrel, which is the pub on the island, or explore the cave system, something like that. And you all slam down your little standees, and then when the time's done, you go in order, and then you get to see what it is. And often you'll even get multiple options. It's, in some ways, you choose your own adventure story in terms of when you're in these little scenarios, but it's also on rails. But what is the best thing about it?
The pirate name generator.
That is a good point. There's a pirate name generator you do by rolling the dice and multiplying them, and it's always a hoot.
So funny.
It really gets players into the game at the very start.
Yeah, and we all take it in turns at the beginning, don't we, to read out what the pirate name generator has given us.
Backstory.
They're always hilarious. Read out the backstory with added pirate accents. It's absolutely mandatory in our group.
Yeah, pirate accents. But actually what I thought you were going to say and what I was trying to get at was, and we have no rehearsal for that, it was the writing, basically. It's what makes this game stand out.
Yeah.
The writing.
The writing of the story, the whole way that it's presented on the app as well. It has the background music of the different locations.
The sound effects makes a big difference. It's all voice acted. It's done really, really well, actually. And one thing you've said before is it's very funny, but it's not cheesy. It doesn't cross that line. It's kind of smart comedy a lot of the time.
Very smart.
There's a lot of pop culture references, but it's just funny and engaging and lighthearted and a great experience.
I remember, I think it was in the last scenario, all of the ports were named after cheeses. And I think it took us a while to notice. It was like, go to Camembert Port.
Yeah,
go
exactly.
to Port Ricotta.
Yeah.
And it took us a while. I think I was like, hang on, they're all cheeses. Just funny.
It was never mentioned anywhere as well. Like,
no.
it was just there for you to see it. It's not like it came up.
No, it doesn't force the comedy on you. You have to listen out for it. But when you hear it and you notice it, it's absolutely genius. Yeah,
there's somewhere you can go and you can talk to these characters, and they're essentially SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick.
Yeah.
And you pick which one you want to speak to. And then there's another time where we were sailing and it was a random event, and it essentially dropped you on a Pokemon island, and you went around catching, or you could decide whether to catch Pikachus or not. And it doesn't say it outright, but it's this undercurrent, and it's very well written.
Yeah.
And it's tremendous fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a review on this if you want to know in full. But in terms of fun in a box, it's such a game.
Yeah, maybe that should have been the award name. Fun in a box.
Well, that's true of everything, right? Otherwise, why would you play it?
True. The most fun in a box.
All right. So that was our game of 2020. And now for our next award, which is the Game of Thrones in Under 45 Minutes award for The King is Dead, 2nd edition. And we are going to join the huge ranks of reviewers that just say good things about this game, to be honest. We got it very recently. It's been an instant hit.
Yeah.
And the reason it gets the Game of Thrones Awards in under 45 minutes is because it's a very short, sharp, strategic game, very thinky, and it just makes me laugh a lot because it's so simple and silly what you're doing, but you get all the players around the table just going, I don't know what to do. And all you're doing is pushing cubes around a map. Mm-hmm. That's like literally it.
Yeah.
So the way it works is everyone is given 8 cards, the same 8 cards, each has a personal supply. And the board is populated with cubes. And the premise is it's, I think, 1500s. The king of Britain has died and there needs to be a new one. So everyone's kind of vying for power, trying to get the throne, and you're given these cubes at the start, and the cubes will represent who your followers are. Now, it's blue for Scotland, red for Wales, and yellow for England. And the map of Britain, so Wales, Scotland, and England, will also be populated with these cubes at random to a region. And the way it works is you play a card on your turn, or you can pass. That's it. And once you play all 8 cards, you're pretty much out of the game. And when everyone passes in a row, you look at the region that is next in this row of region cards and you sort it out. So you see who has the majority, they then get to place a disc there and that region is controlled. It's out of the game now. It's owned by Wales or whatever. If it's tied, then there's no clear leader and the French invade. And either at the end of the game, the French have invaded and the person who has the most sets of cubes of the followers, so a set is one English, one Welsh. One English.
Speaking Welsh?
Maybe. One English, one Welsh and one Scottish. So whoever has the most sets of those will then win because they've united everyone together. But usually what happens is someone is crowned the king. And the way this works is you look which faction has won the most regions and say it's Wales. Then you look to see who has the most Welsh cubes. But the trick is that the more Welsh cubes you have, the less there is available to go on the board to win those territories. So you're walking a very thin line. And, oh God, it is so simple, yet so strategic.
Yeah, and you take the cubes, whenever you play a card, you take a cube from the board. So that's how you end up with the followers. So that's always it's always a strategic decision. Okay, one, do I even play a card or do I pass this round? Am I happy with the state of the cubes on that region that's going to come up now? And if I play a card, which one? Play it. Where do I place? So the cards that are played are usually about, well, they're either placing more cubes on a region or you can shift cubes around regions. So you decide what you want to do there. And then once you've done that, then you decide which cube do I take, because it can be from anywhere on the map. And then what followers do I take? Do I want to try and, I've already got majority red Welsh followers. Do I want to keep boosting Wales? So if Wales is looking like they're going to win, I will have the most followers. Should I diversify a bit more so I can easily catch up if England starts winning? And then your opponents can pass. You can again decide, even if you've passed, you can come back into the game, right? So it has to be everyone passes in a round before it moves on to the next region. So, so simple in its actions, but so thinky, and it's just very interesting. It's one of those games where you just really, I personally can't make a strategy because I find it very difficult to foresee how things are going to play out, even though it's so simple and it's just 3 coloured cubes.
Yeah,
but you just don't know what the board state is going to be like when it gets back round to your turn. And it's very hard to even know, okay, this person is probably going to do that or they might do this. It's just, because it's so simple, there's very little clues.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the thing is, it's very fluid. It's a fluid game
That's a good way to describe
what you're trying to do and the best thing to do will change non-stop.
Yeah.
And you very likely will start by pursuing one strategy and then you'll throw it away and do something else. And then in the last moments of the game, you'll be doing a totally different thing as well. And it's just, it's really a delight to play. And just going back to what makes me laugh is that all you're doing, the cards are really simple. It'll be like swap 2 cubes in 2 neighbouring regions. That's it, 2 cubes, and then you take one. And people will sit there for like 3 minutes just going, and it makes me laugh internally. I absolutely love playing this just for that. And very simple to introduce, although you do very much need to be aware of the win conditions, because there's it's very easy to tie up and have 2 factions win the same number of territories at the end of the game.
Yeah. And
then you have several tiebreakers, and it's really important to know them all.
Yeah. But our friends have picked this up so quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's really first play and you can get it. And it's quick as well, like it shouldn't take that long.
I think most of the time that we've played it with our friends, we've immediately played another game.
Yes.
After.
Because it's just so engaging and short that you want to play again.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that it's for 2 to 4, and 2 is pretty good. I think 3 was pretty good. And 4, it becomes a team game, but it's a very strange team game in that you can't communicate with your teammate. So it's very tough because it's a very complex game on the ground. in terms of the ever shifting pattern of gameplay and the flow and what people are doing.
Yeah, and I was on your team when we did the first 4-player, and it was extremely stressful. You were staring at me like...
Yeah, because ironically, as we were saying, I didn't understand the win conditions, and then somebody looked it up halfway through, and me and him both thought the same thing, but we were wrong.
We all did.
Yeah, and then it was annoying because I was getting mad at you for not doing something, but I should have just pursued the strategy we were on, because it would have meant that I think would have won if I'd done it. But then I threw it out because you weren't doing what I wanted you to, so I threw it out to make sure that we could win through you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Game of Thrones in 45 minutes, incredible game. Definitely recommend it wholeheartedly. But yeah, so on to the next award. Now for our next award, the Why Aren't There Enough Resources Award.
That goes to Bonfire.
A new favourite for Tally.
This is
Big fan, aren't you?
Yeah, this is one of my new favourites. Despite the fact that I'm absolutely trash at Eurogames, which this is a Eurogame, I really love it. Really like the theme, which I didn't think I would, because I'm not typically into fantastical themes. And this is about a pixie fairyland. I don't really know what it is still, but I like it, okay?
I think you just make it up every time.
I make it up every time I try to describe the theme, it's different. Anyway, it's a Euro game where you have an individual player mat, and the goal is to get victory points like every other Euro game. But you do that by lighting bonfires on your own personal player map. There's lots of different ways that you can score points, but that's the overall goal. And it's like a semicircular player map, and your guardians will do a procession around your map, and then that can score you more points. You can also complete tasks for the... Who are you completing the tasks for?
No, so that's the thing. So the point of the game is to light the bonfires.
Yeah.
See, it gets really fantastical, to use a word. So you want to relight bonfires because it's good and prevents the end of the world or something. I'm not really sure. But what the bonfires are tasks. And once you complete a task, it becomes a bonfire. So you flip it. And that's what you're talking about. So... yeah, the tasks are what you flip to become bonfires.
To make the bonfires.
So the tasks are little errands you have to do. Have 3 of this resource. Do this one thing. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. There's a bonfire in the middle of the in the middle of the game board. So how it actually works is you take actions by having action tokens. So I think this is also why it's quite interesting, this game, and something that I haven't particularly seen before. So... you can do a number of actions, but to do it, you have to have the matching tokens. So the tokens that you have will kind of guide you in a direction for actions that you will do. So it could be things like sail your boat around the lake and collect the task, which will eventually become a bonfire. You can use the central bonfire, spin that around and get some more tokens or more resources. You can take path tiles which fit into your player map, and you have guardians that walk around the edge of it, and that gets you more points if you light the bonfire and they step into the bonfire.
No, next to it. I think they look at it. They admire it.
They admire the bonfire.
They're like little health and safety people checking that you've done your task.
With a hard hat, yeah. What's interesting is you have also a... personal puzzle in the middle of your player board that you'll take tiles from your personal supply, and how you match those tiles together is going to determine how many of a certain action token you get when you run out. And the more that you can link up together that match, the more action tokens you get. So let's say you want boat tokens, you take tiles from your personal supply, but it has to go either from the top or from the bottom. And if you link the boat one up with another boat one that's already on your board, then you would get duplicates of that action token. So it's almost a puzzle puzzle within the puzzle of the game to how many tokens you can get and what tokens you can get, and then that will determine usually what actions you can do. But I just really like it, and it's really hard to put my finger on why, because I suppose it doesn't do anything crazy. I think it's quite nice how it has the personal puzzle and your personal player mat. There's lots going on, so lots to think about, but I can't really put my finger on why I like it. I think the theme does have something to do with it. I think that it's quite mysterious and bonfire-y, and it all feels like at the end it's like a culmination of all of the things that you've done throughout the game, ends with your bonfires being lit.
I think that's a fair way to put it, actually. Yeah. That's a good point. I haven't thought of that, but you're right. It does have this culmination effect at the end when you score up, because you don't really get any points to the very end when you score for everything.
Yeah.
And it is like you're constantly working on your player mat the whole game, and then you're like rewarded for it.
Yeah.
What I would say is I'm more lukewarm on it. I don't dislike it. I don't think it's the greatest game ever. I'm very midline about it. But you're right, it's interesting enough in a lot of ways, like this little puzzle of getting your action tiles together and how you put them, because you'll always be really good at one or two things if you align them properly, but not good at another two or three actions. And it like balances out how you're going to optimize and utilize what you're best at. Few negatives, and importantly, why we're giving it the award of why there are not enough resources.
It's a self-explanatory award.
I think we've played 3 times. In our second 2-player game, there wasn't enough resources left for me to take any more gold, I believe it was. And we're only playing 2-player. It goes up to 4. And then in our first 3-player game, ran out of resources again of a certain type. And there's no easy way to, what's the word?
Keep track.
Yeah, keep track, have an IOU for them. Just because there's nothing in the game that will allow you to do that. No. That would simply, give you the idea that you have that many, whatever it is. But yeah, I guess, I think it's because they're so big and chunky. What could have been 3 small resources is like 1. So it's a bit of an issue, and there's not really an easy way to solve it, especially in the middle of gameplay. Yeah. So that's...
I can't imagine what it would be like with a 4-player game.
No.
We have issues in 2-player with running out.
Yeah, you have to just get coloured something or types of coin or pieces of paper and write down. And the other thing that isn't great, which I think you can agree, is symbology.
Oh, yeah.
Symbology is awful.
It is really bad. It makes as experienced gamers, it's not a difficult game to learn, but the symbology makes it so much harder than it needs to be.
That's a good way of putting it.
We have to constantly refer back to the booklet. To be fair, at least the booklet has a list of all of the cards and all of the symbols that you need to know and what they do and what the effect is. But still, I feel like in a game like this, it shouldn't really be necessary to have to keep referring back. There could have been an easier solution to understand what each action does by just looking at the symbols. But there isn't. We have to check all the time. Despite the same cards coming up, game after game, I can never remember what the actions are, what the effect is, because it's just
I think
not great.
A lot of the issue is that some of the colours don't match with the resources, and even with the guardians you can pick up from the islands. So you'll have a task and it'll say, get this guardian, but it won't match the colour really, and you'll have to look into it and see and guess. And the issue is, it's one of those games where it has 101 different things it's trying to tell you and uses it all through symbology. And some of the symbols are repeated a lot, but in various different ways, but so much so that all these minute differences don't just show you what it wants. You have to look it up. And I think the game comes with probably like 50 task tiles at least, and then there's like another 30 cards maybe, and each of these does something completely, or wants something completely different, and you really have no way to know if you're doing it correctly unless you check the book every time. It's a game that you could very much be, spend all of your tokens getting a tile and trying to work towards it, and then be like looking at the tile next to it in the booklet and realize, oh, that I needed to do something completely different, and now I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, pretty sure that's happened to me.
But no, it's definitely not to be mean about it, but it's an interesting Euro for sure. It does interesting things, and it's a little different.
Our friend said that when we introduced it to him, he liked it, but he wasn't itching to play it again. He wasn't hooked on it, but it was pleasant enough to play. And I think, despite the fact that I do really like it, I do think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, but let's move on then.
Let's move on.
So, next award. And now, coming on to the next game. And this game has received the award for dropping your phone in the toilet in terms of bad luck award.
That's a long award title.
Yes. And that goes to Nemesis, because this is an absolutely brutal game where all the decks are stacked against you, and playing generally feels like you just dropped your phone in the toilet in terms of how your day's going. So this is a big box game that's been around for a while, and we just got our Kickstarter version of it. And essentially, it's Aliens, the board game. They've labelled them intruders, I guess, for
copyright purposes.
Exactly. But the scenario is, it's definitely a storytelling game. This is not really a competitive game. It's a game where you are a person on a ship in space. You wake up from a hibernatorium, and there's a dead body in front of you. Something's popped out of its chest. That's not great. And then, and because of the effects of space travel, you can't really remember who you are or what you want to do or what's wrong with the ship. So you just go for a little walk, and then intruder bursts out of an air duct and rips your head off.
Tries to savage you.
Yeah. So it's definitely a storytelling game, and each player will take the role of a unique character, single words like pilot, engineer, scout, medic, so on. Although I think the medic is like a expansion bonus little add-on. So it works through, it's not a deck builder, but it's card-driven action, I guess you could say. You have a standard deck of 10 cards, and actions will require you to discard cards from your hand. And each round you'll get a hand of 5, and when it's gone you have to pass and you're out. And certain actions, like a basic movement, you discard a card. Or you can do the action on the cards, which might let you search the room you're in for a useful item, might let you move, but without having to roll a dice to see if you attract a monster. So those are your kind of options. And it's semi-cooperative. Everyone's going to be given objectives, and these will say things such as make sure the ship is heading to Mars, or kill player X. There's
secret objectives.
Yeah, so you get one personal and one corporate, and the corporate ones are usually a bit meaner, and the personal ones are a bit nicer, I guess you could say, as a general rule, because they might have you just examining alien eggs to see what it is, things like that. Yeah. But to win, you have to either get an escape pod and launch and complete your objective, or make sure the ship's heading to Earth and be in the hibernatorium and complete your objective. But every time you move, which you're going to be doing a lot, it's very much a game of moving room to room, searching that room, seeing if that room is useful to what you're doing, maybe using that room. If it's, say, the cockpit, where you can set coordinates of where the ship's going. The engine room, where you can check if the engine's broken or not, which is all hidden information to you. And every time you move, you roll dice, and then you put a noise marker in the number that corresponds to a hallway adjacent to that room. It there's ever 2 noise markers, you start getting intruders
Popping
out everywhere. And these can range from a little lava fella to a room-filling alien queen, which is not good.
She's scary.
Full of great miniatures, but there is player elimination in this, of course. So it is a game about creating these stories of running around a ship and what happens. It's not a game you can expect to win every time. It's very much of the ilk of Eldritch Horror or Mansions of Madness. It's a bit of a mix of both, really.
It reminds me a little bit of Betrayal, because you do spend the first part of the game exploring the ship because the room tiles are face down in the beginning. So you spend a lot of time exploring, flipping the room tiles, seeing what's there, and then it all starts kicking off, right? Because the more you're moving around, the more likely it is that you are going to trigger the intruders. So reminds me a little bit of that. And also the element where there's, you kind of, well, you might have traitors, you don't know who that is, but it depends on the person's secret objectives. It could be, like Farrell said, to eliminate you, or you might have to eliminate them, or do something that's a bit more soft, but all of the personal objectives could conflict with each other. So towards the end of the game, things might start happening that is not so cooperative because people need to fill their own objectives.
And what's interesting is that you can't actually directly harm another player. So you almost have to make Rube Goldberg machines of traps to injure them or lead aliens to them, or because you're allowed to throw a grenade at them if they're in a room with an alien, but you can't just throw a grenade at them. Intruder. So it's an interesting game. We're usually not ones for player elimination and things that you can't win, I guess. You more than me. I think I'm a little more into the Mansions of Madness, Eldritch Horror, where you can play for a couple of hours and lose.
For the sake of the story.
Whereas you're a bit more ambivalent on that aspect.
Yeah, because I don't have any imagination, which I'm sure we'll get onto when we talk about sleeping gods. I just have a bit less drive to play games like that because I prefer something that is just more get 100 victory points, or that's a bit more tangible in the objective. But I mean, that's not to say that I hate those type of games. It's just I would always choose a game that has a more tangible or numerical based objective or victory points over something that isn't. But yeah, it is really fun. And I think when you first got it out, and obviously it looks quite intimidating, it's a big box, you think, oh my goodness, this is going to be really complicated. I mean, we had played it before, but it was a friend's copy probably about 18 months ago. But I couldn't really remember how to play, and I thought it was going to be really overwhelming, but it's not that bad.
It's not bad.
Actually. The things that you do turn to turn is play a card, and it's okay once you get going.
A lot of the, not even toughness, but you just have to check a lot when you first start playing. At the end of the round, what's the order of things that happen? What happens when you're in a room with an intruder? How does the event card work? What do you do first? And you're referencing the rules a lot in your early games, but mainly just to learn the order of stuff. Your moment-to-moment action and your decision-making is quite straightforward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I think one thing I would say that I'm not a fan of in this game, I think a lot of the luck elements of this are very much part of the storytelling and serve the theme, and it's fine. The one thing I do have an issue with that I think is almost like double bad luck is the combat. And the way the combat works is your character might have a gun equipped and you have ammo cubes on it, usually not very many, between 1 and 4 maybe, depending on the gun. And if you want to attack an intruder, you have to discard 1 ammo and then you roll a dice. And depending on the roll, you might hit it, you might not. And I find this a particular slap in the face because it's like either have a system that restricts your ammo and then you hit every time, or a system where you have unlimited ammo and you roll the dice every time, but not both.
Yeah.
Because it's already a brutally unforgiving game.
Yeah.
And to have this system where you can just use all of your ammo for the entire game and never hit once. It just
luck, yeah.
It turns it across that line for me. That's the one thing that I really dislike about this, and I just find it unthematic and unintuitive as well, because it's a lot easier for some reason to hit a small moving lava scurrying across the floor than it is to hit a room-filling queen. And I just don't get that thematically, right?
Yeah. It's also really difficult to fill up on ammo because it will typically be from one room. It could be all the way across the board. It's not that easy to move around once the game gets going because you're going to trigger the intruders more and more. So it's not like it's even easy to fill up on ammo. So yeah, I agree with your observation there. And
yeah, as a final thought, I think I do want to play it more, and it's a good game, and we just need to get more into art of having an experience rather than playing it to win.
Yeah.
But you can also, in this game, go from 0 to 60 a bit too fast, I think, for our liking. Because in our last game, we played 2-player, and what happened is I was totally fine, and then I got attacked twice, or I think I had to escape a monster twice, and I got 2 serious wounds, and if you have a third one, you die immediately. And I went from being totally fine to basically dead 1 turn later. And the same thing happened. We lost that scenario because the ship exploded, and it went from it being an issue that we had to sort out with mechanical failures, but that wasn't an immediate problem. We're just going to sort it out on our next turn, to then through an event card, just getting like 4 mechanical failures and the ship exploding immediately.
A bit anticlimactic, wasn't it? It's like, okay, it's over now.
It was just a bit unlucky in that it was very much put a malfunction token in every room that is green and doesn't have one, and like all 4 green rooms didn't have one, and then like boom, the ship exploded.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I think we've said that once you play it more and become aware of the possible events and what can come up, you can predict them a bit better and maybe be more prepared, and that will come with time. But that was the thing, it just very much from being like happy and healthy to dead within 1 turn, and the ship being moderately okay to exploding in 1 turn is a bit harsh, I'd say.
Definitely. It's also a strange one because a player could be dead and just out of the game. Can't think of any other games where that happens that we have or own. And in one of our games, our friend was out of the game, and then he was sitting around waiting for us. Or was it though because he went in an escape pod? He wasn't actually dead, right? But anyway, the game doesn't end at the same time for all the players.
He got an escape pod.
Okay, he didn't die.
But yeah, so Nemesis, dropping your phone in the toilet award.
Okay, so the next award is the Pulitzer Prize for Great Storytelling, and it goes to Sleeping Gods, which is another narrative story-driven game, similar to Forgotten Waters in the fact that there's a storybook in the middle of the table and you play as characters. I think the story, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're a crew, again, on a boat, not pirates, just a crew, and you've woken up in a mysterious land with some sleeping gods, and you're trying to make your way back home, basically. But in order to do that, you need to sail around, complete some objectives, and find some totems in order to destroy the gods. Or do you want...
No, I think you're supposed to wake them up.
Supposed to wake them up.
Then if you wake them up, they'll let you go home.
And each character that you play as, so we're playing in a 2-player game. So we control 4 characters each, and there's also a ship captain, and she can be used by anyone. But each player is stronger in a certain amount of traits. And as you move through the story, you have a big storybook, and the ship will go to certain locations on the storybook on the map, and then it will have a number, and then you read out the scenario that's in the storybook, and it will give you some options. So it might be you're on a beach, go and explore this. Do you want to do option A? Do you want to do option B? And you basically have to make a check on that skill. So it could be savvy or cunning, and different characters will be better or worse at the different traits, so you might fail or pass, basically.
Yeah. Bit of a choose your own adventure style game.
Yes.
And I think won't speak on this too much because we want to play it a bit more, and I think we'll do a review, and I wouldn't be surprised to bring it back maybe next month when we play more. So we've probably only done 6 to 10 hours at the moment. But what is great is often these games can not nail all the mechanics. Taking Seventh Continent, which we spoke about last month, which is a game where, it's choose your own adventure, but then it slaps you in the face for looking at something and go, no, that was a stupid idea, but you had no way to know that. And it's also a game where to progress, you have to pass challenges, but because it's at the luck of drawing cards from a deck, you could need 1 star to pass, and you could draw 5 cards, which would be overkill, and still not get it. And then you've rinsed 10%, no, more than that, 15% of your entire, kind of supply of actions and failed. And then you're in a much worse position. And it's just a lot of stuff in that game we didn't find very fun. And this basically does everything good. It's done exceptionally well. It's written exceptionally well. Yeah. Storytelling is exceptional, which is why we gave it that award. It's very endearing. We engage with the characters pretty quickly, which is quite surprising, particularly for you.
Yeah.
But they're well fleshed out. It's interesting the way that you gain quests through interacting with locations on the map and making these options and talking to people. They give you a quest and you get a quest card. It's very much like playing an RPG video game in that sense. And you can go any direction you want. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's all great stuff. But I think the main thing I want to talk about this time that's important is the challenges, which you spoke about. Like any kind of choose your own adventure type game like this, you have to pass a check to proceed. But first of all, you don't need to pass a check to proceed. You generally proceed anyway. You just get some negative states. Maybe you get injured, maybe someone goes crazy, but it always lets you proceed with the story because the point is the story. And Sleeping Gods won't lock you off from that, which is incredible because you're only playing it to come engage with the world.
Yeah, it doesn't punish you
Yes.
for exploring and wanting to know more of the story in the same way that Seventh Continent does, in our opinion.
And the other great thing is that you can almost always pass a check if you really want to. Sometimes the trick is knowing when to say, let's just take the 3 health damage because it's not worth it and progress. Other times you can, even if it's a big challenge, you need to check 8 or 9, you can almost always do it because the way it works is, first of all, you commit any crew members you want to use and they get fatigued the more you use them and they can only take so much and then they can't be used. But they will have skills and you can upgrade them with cards, which means they have more of that skill. And anyway, so you say, I'm using them. And now you have a base of 4 strength, let's say. Then you draw a card from the Fate deck and it has a number between 1 and 6 on it. So it's a 3. Then you have 6, but you need an 8. And then you have all these other cards, adventure cards, that you can use through these tokens that are passed between the players, command tokens, to activate them. So maybe this guy you've picked up in one of your quests, he'll give you a strength. So you activate him. You discard this card you had in your hand. That's another strength. Now you have 8 and you've passed the challenge.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a great system because you can, rather than the system of, we really need to do this, so let's fatigue every single character we have, and then you flip a 6 fate card and you only needed to use 2 of them, and now you've kind of wasted them all. It's the reverse, where you can use as many as you think you need to use, flip the fate card, and then if you're under, you can use some command tokens to boost you up.
You decide to,
It's just a terrific system for challenges. I think the combat's interesting, but let's talk about that more next time.
Yeah.
Because, I think I'd like to play this more and come back to this so we won't spend too much time on it.
But I'm enjoying it, despite not, as I just mentioned, typically actively choosing to play games like this. But I am quite into this story. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I want to play it now.
Yeah.
After this.
Yeah.
All right. That was Sleeping Gods. And now our penultimate award, the How to Make People Work Together award to Oz, Australia. So this is a weird little game we've been playing, and weird is a word we're going to use a lot here. It's one part Ticket to Ride, one part Economic Brass Birmingham Resource Management, one part Eldritch Horror.
Yeah.
And essentially the setting is Australia is very full of minerals and resources, but it's also very full of eldritch old ones like Cthulhu and his pals. And you want to go mine Australia, but you also want to beat up
Fight
Cthulhu.
Off them monsters.
Mainly because they come and blight your farms, which is super annoying.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange one because you spend like the first third of the game building up your economy and your train lines and getting stuff and building up your army, and then you go and fight the monsters essentially.
Yeah. Very strange. Makes me feel so strange playing it. It is fun, just strange. Combination of all those things is just unlike.
Yeah.
Even though it feels familiar, all the individual parts feel familiar, but putting them all together doesn't quite sit right, but not in a bad way because it is fun to play. It just feels a little bit strange.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And you actually play basically against the old ones. They're pretty much a player character and they can beat you. And they have thrashed us both times we've played because me and Tally cannot work together in a competitive game.
I just want to make my own little train line. I don't want to...
Yeah, you're supposed to work together and fight them together because they get points based on how many are left on the board at the end of the game. And we've just not been able to collaborate at all.
No. But, and also they get points for how many farms that they blight of yours as well. So just the combination of ones left on the board and the amount of farms that they've been able to blight, mostly of mine, which is incredibly irritating, but they just, absolutely thrash us. So is it that, we never got this far because we never beat them, but if you beat them, then obviously it's the player with the most points after that will win, right? So kind of a weird mixture there as well of co-op, but competitive at the same time.
But I think we won't talk too much about this, but it's weird. I think one thing we both agree on is that the combat system is extremely annoying. Yeah. It's card-based, so you build up your military, and then when you want to do an attack action, you pick what you want to send out. Because this game has a kind of action system of time. So the bigger the action, the more steps forward on the time track you move your marker. And whoever's last gets to have their turns until they're not last anymore. And then
there's
whoever's
only a
last.
finite amount of time points for each player. So you have to be aware of that.
So you build up your army, and depending how many you send out, it's how many time points you use, action points. And then you fight them, and you draw cards, and you look at the monster you're fighting, and then it'll have symbols on the left. So it'll say an airship will do damage to it, and an infantry will do damage to it. Then on the right, it'll say it does 1 damage, and 1 damage to an airship. And it's just such a silly system, because you can get turns where, because until you withdraw or everyone's dead on either side, it keeps going. And obviously you don't want to withdraw until you're about to die. So the way it works is you'll just be like, nothing, 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 nothing.
Because the
one
symbols
hit.
don't match.
Yeah. One hit on the monster, nothing, nothing. And it's just like...
It's not very tense, is it? It could have been that drawing cards and flipping them over can be tense in that kind of situation, but there's just something about it. Well, it's the fact that you always have to keep flipping so many cards draws all of the tension out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just not that fun.
No.
I'm sure something better, because it is a really interesting concept to have this resource management, train tile laying game that also has monsters that you have to combat. The combat part, the mechanism lets it down, I think.
Yeah.
It just isn't that fun to do. I mean, you have to do it because otherwise the monsters come and blight your farms. But every time I do just think, I have to do this combat, and that didn't hit, it doesn't match any of my symbols. Just you flip so many cards.
You go through the deck at least
that
once.
long.
And what's more annoying is that there's this system where it's like infantry is good against this and armored cars are good against that. And it just doesn't really work in practice because it's through the randomness of cards. So in our last game, I had this thing where it says, I think I had both armored cars and infantry, but I didn't want to send them all out because, as we said, it costs more time action points. So I only want to send one because it's quite a weak enemy. And infantry, armored car, equally good. Send one of them. And then it's just, infantry, great. The one I didn't send, nothing, damage, infantry. And there's just, it's so random and unbalanced and unlucky and weird and swingy that it's just not, it's a bit, it could have, chucking dice, I'm not a fan of dice combat, but I think chucking dice could have been a better way to go here.
It would have been better.
With more dice for better military equipment or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we've only played at 2 players, so we'll have to see how it is at higher play counts. It says that it will be easier to beat the monsters, and in the 2-player game, you have to actively work together to try and defeat them.
Yeah.
So we do need to actually do that, and then it would be easier with more players to do.
Yeah. But Australia. And
next up, we have Time is Just a Human Concept Award, which goes to Twilight Imperium.
4th edition. Yes. So I would expect that most people know what this behemoth of a box is, but if you don't, Twilight Imperium is a long-standing game.
Epic.
It's been, in terms of it's been around for 20 years plus.
Okay, long in that
25,
sense.
something like that. 1997, I think, first edition was, but I could be wrong. And it's one of the most popular board games of all time. Essentially, players will each be a asymmetric alien race, or humans, and you have a galaxy-spanning game conflict. And the best way to put it is an epic board game of conquest, politics, and trade, which sums it up quite succinctly.
How did you come up with that?
And it is just incredible. This is a game that has been growing on us. So we played it twice last year when we got it, and then we put it away for a year, and then our friend came over and we had a bank holiday, and he just said, why don't we play Twilight Imperium tomorrow? And we were just like, yeah, okay then. Hadn't thought about it, but I was like, sure, time to get it out again. And we really enjoyed it. So then we decided to play again on another bank holiday in May, and we introduced a new player to it. And it just, every time we play this, my love for it grows.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's so engaging.
I think a lot of people would be very jealous that we managed to get this to the table twice in 1 month.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's very epic. It can be very long. The first game we played in May on that first bank holiday, it was 3 hours, and that was crazy short for this game.
Yeah, I think it was a bit longer than
3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Even so, this can take people 10, 12 hours.
2 days.
Yeah. So that was a very short game, and I think the second game was 6 or 7 hours?
Yeah, about that. 6.
And even that's quite quick for this game.
About 6 hours, yeah.
Yeah, something
7.
like that.
Especially with a new player.
Yeah.
And we played to 14 points actually, because you can play to 10 or 14 points. 14 if you don't really want to have a life that day. But it is so much fun. But the way it works is you all start in your little corners of the galaxy and you expand out. And when you land on a planet, you get that planet card and it gives you resources and influence. And you use the resources to build more ships and use the influence to essentially vote on council matters. So when someone captures a planet in the middle of the galaxy, you start having a diplomacy phase, which is what we call it. I think it's called agenda phase in the game. And you vote these agendas into power. So they can be laws, they can give a player a power, they can restrict the number of troops you can have, they just alter the rules of the game or give people edges, and you use these influence you have from planets by exhausting them to vote.
Yeah.
And it's just quite cool, and there's a lot of trading you can do in this game. So you get promissory notes that you can give to people, and you can say, hey, if you leave me alone, I'll give you this. That lets you take all of my trade goods when I get them, stuff like that. Or you can negotiate and say, if you let me pass through, you know, I'll give you some money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's just super cool. It's not a head-on combat simulator. I think that's one thing you like about it, is that you have played, 4 times, same as me. And what position have you come every time?
Second. Every single damn time. But I do tend to stay out of the combat most of the time. I don't like combat, especially when it's dice, and it can be, I guess it's not so tricky. I always say I don't like combat games where there's a lot of effort to build up an army, then you go and do an attack. Sometimes it can be luck-based with dice, if you win or lose, and then you lose everything, and it takes a lot of effort to build up your army. I really dislike that. I wouldn't say this takes up a lot of effort to build your army, but it takes a lot of effort to move around the board.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't hate the combat. I also don't love it, so I kind of stay out of it and let you guys have your little petty squabbles over there. I stay over here with my glass of wine, thinking about some politics and diplomacy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't partake in the combat, and yet I still have managed to come second and was hot on your heels. In the last game, I, potentially could have won in the next round or two. So I think that's quite interesting. You don't have to love the combat. There's so much else going on.
Exactly.
It's, you don't have to.
I think that's what's important, is that you don't enjoy straight out combat, territory control, fight games, and you can play this and come second every single time without really having to engage in that, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a lot in this box. There's a lot of different routes you can go. You can go militaristic. You can be political, make treaties and bribe people. In the game I won, I was the space lions, and they're traders, and I had a lot of money, and I was doing a lot of favors for people. And there's also a whole technology aspect where you can research technology and become more and more powerful. And the new player found it really fun to keep building them. And he ended up with like 3 war suns on the board, floating around everywhere.
That's true.
With the war suns are like the Death Star, basically, Twilight Imperium's version. But it's a game, and yes, it is long, which is why we gave it the time award, because a day can pass by like that. It doesn't feel long, which is great.
No. I'm always shocked when in our first games, when it did take 10 hours or whatever. It's absolutely crazy because it never feels that long. It never feels boring. It's always pretty engaging, and time doesn't stand still and it feels slow. It goes really fast because it's so much fun.
Yes. And what we always do is we meet at like 12 and we have brunch, and everyone brings something and we all eat, and we might start with some beers because it's a bit rough at the start. And then when someone captures the middle, Mechatol Rex, we move to wine and cheese for the voting phase.
It's got to be classy.
And we just make a day of it. We always make a day of it, and it's really, really good fun. And it just allows, it's such a sandbox for experiences. There was just some great moments, say in the last game, where the green player wanted to come through a wormhole close to me and obviously just attack me. But the red player was hovering on that wormhole. So the green player was going, hey, look, I'll give you this note and the stuff if you just move out of the way and let me through, which I did not want to happen. So I was like, hey, I'll give you this promissory note that gives you 1 VP. Because the red player at that time, I think, didn't have any or was last. And the red player just goes, yep, and like threw the green player's note back at him and just like took it off me and was like, I'm not moving. And it's just like these little moments where, but then what's great about that is on the sly, that note gave him 1 VP. But if he attacks me, he has to give it back, which then meant I had a stalwart ally protecting like one flank. And so then it meant that I never had to be worried about him for the whole game. And what's quite interesting is that just because there's public objectives and secret objectives, and the public objectives are for everyone, secret just for you to know, and you never quite know what someone's doing or what they're going for. You can guess, and maybe sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes you just don't know.
No.
So I captured Mechatol Rex first in that game, scored a few points off it. And then the green player came and took it away from me. And I, at this point in the game, really needed a cultural planet, which is just, planets are labelled cultural hazardous. It's kind of meaningless, but just for objectives.
Yeah.
And I needed one. And there was 2 options, but then I believe Tally took a system over where she had it, because I think it had a technology that you needed.
Yeah.
And you just built loads of troops or moved them in there or something, and then it was like a huge battle, and I didn't want that. And then my ally, the red player, he only had like 1 ship, and he hadn't even taken the planet. So I was like, I'm just going to go there. So I amassed this huge fleet off Mechatol Rex in an asteroid field. And the green player, who's controlling at that point, starts sweating bullets because he thinks I'm coming to take it back.
Yeah.
And everything he does from that point is based around that he thinks that I'm on Mechatol Rex because he can't see any reason why I wouldn't try and take it, because he has it and he's scared to lose it. And I'm just looking at the red player in a small little system that means nothing to no one, ready to like go Death Star on it. And it's just like, it's really funny like that. And there was a time where the red player had this war sun and he was moving it closer and closer to me. And I was sweating because I really couldn't do much to defend myself. And then next thing you know, after letting me sweat about it, he goes through a wormhole and suddenly next to the green player's home planet, and it's destroying everything in sight.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was never going for you.
Yeah.
It's just, you just never know. And there's like all these experiences and stories to tell.
I think the interesting thing is that you can only, at the end of each round, score 1 public objective and 1 of your private ones, and you can only have 3 private ones max in the game. So you always have to think you could actually score all 4 of the public objectives that are revealed, because they're more revealed each round. You don't know what they all are until they get flipped. But if there's 4 revealed, you could satisfy all 4, but you can't do that because you can only do 1 per round. So you have to think, should I satisfy this objective this round because I have control of a planet that I need, or should I do that other one because that person might come and take that away from me and then I won't satisfy it anymore. You really have to think in what order you want to score them. I think that's probably one of the things that I find the most interesting about it is knowing what objective to score each round and how to place them, because there's always the risk that someone could take from you. Some of them, you know, that they're safe. So you think, okay, I'll score that one later because I know it's safe. I should score the more risky ones. I find that really interesting.
It's like quite interesting as well, because the way that it's scored and that you score them and then it's done, it really shifts what you're interested in moment to moment.
Yeah.
And it creates these wild swing moments where there was a time where you came in and took the system I was talking about before, but at that point I needed hazardous planets, and you took the cultural planet, and I didn't care at all. And when you moved into that, I had an entire fleet around you. And I was like, I was so mad when you went in there, and I was like, I'm going to move everyone I have in there and blow you away. And then you took this like other planet, and I was like, oh, I don't care, fine.
Yeah.
As long as you leave the other one, you can do whatever you want there. And it's actually quite dark because you're being imperialistic, like space races, right, and conquering. And it's quite dark that you're bartering an entire planet based on your whims of the moment and what you need.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is a game that has really grown on us, and I think we're all itching to play again.
Yeah.
And what's really annoying is when I knew we were going to play a second time in May, I decided to give in and get the expansion because everyone says how much it adds to the game and how much it improves it. And then it came one day after we played, which was super annoying. But it means we have an excuse to try it out and play again soon, which I'm looking forward to.
We've got some willing participants.
So I think, everyone had a great time, which is the most important part. Win or lose, it's just one of those games that you have stories and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was Twilight Imperium 4th edition. You might have to take it. There's not enough room down here.
So come to the end of our look back video for May. We really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please feel free to ask us any questions about any of the games that we talked about. Give us any recommendations that you have based on the games that we liked. Let us know if Undaunted North Africa is worth having, given how much that we enjoyed Undaunted Normandy. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, it would mean the world to us if you could do that. And please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And thanks very much for watching. Yes. And see you next time.
Yes, and we've got our video review of Nidavellir coming out at the end of this week.
Yes.
And if this is in the future, you can still go and find it. It will be there. And Nidavellir is a great game, so you should definitely watch it. It's so much fun.
Yes.
But thanks for watching this one. We really appreciate it. And see you next time.
Bye.